Hey, what's up everyone? Eric Rossi, the guy with you here today, and I wanted to cover something that I think is pretty important, especially to, beginner photographers, people, in the hobbyists and are maybe looking to improve a little bit. I really wanted to tackle the, camera, DSLR, mirrorless settings that you should, and I use should pretty hard here, and I hate using should, but you should know these by heart, so that way you can adapt to any situation. What the heck am I talking about? Let's break it down, and let's go. Now to start off, I'm not going to tell you to shoot manual, but things you should know are your shooting modes. Manual mode, aperture mode, shutter priority mode. You should develop with these because it will help you grow as a photographer. I think an ultimate goal is to eventually shoot manual, so you have complete, constructive, creative control over what the scene and what you want to shoot, the settings and everything of that nature. So I don't think you should start off learning manual right away. I think you should learn using aperture and shutter priority. I think you should learn more or less on aperture priority because I think that's more of an accurate reading. You can have more control. You can see exactly what you're doing as you're setting your aperture, and your camera decides the ISO and the shutter speed, and same thing for shutter priority. I think that develop and knowing those can really go a long way. So that way, maybe the ultimate goal, as I said, to shoot manual, so that way you have complete control. So those settings you should really know and get the use of manual, aperture priority, and shutter priority. And I think if you learn especially shutter and aperture priority, it will definitely help you easily get into manual. You should definitely get to know your exposure and what kind of metering you want to use. It's really important to how your camera will meter the light, and you see the little lines and how they move and everything. Should you use matrix, or I think Canon calls it evaluative? Should you use center weighted? Should you use spot weighted? And I'll throw maybe a couple links down to some things I've done on metering modes and why I like certain metering modes over others. And it's essential because, once again, that's how your camera is reading the light. You are relying heavily on how the scene is being lit. So, do you want matrix? Do you want more of the overall look? Do you want center-rated, where it's wherever your little dot is, your focusing dot, wherever you move that around, and you get a base out of it? Or do you want something spot-related, to where it's just directly where you have your dot, wherever you're moving it? That's what that's what your camera will meter for. And besides knowing just your metering modes, just really understanding your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture. Combine all those and you will understand exposure. Flash, that's another thing you should really kind of get into, but not right away. This is camera set. I think the third set of things to look into is what kind of focusing do you want? Do you want continuous focusing, autofocusing, so that when you're tracking sports or race cars or something, as you're going along, the autofocus will hopefully track pretty well, and it's done really well in mirrorless cameras now as well. So that myth is kind of slipping under the rug. Do you want it to track it as you're going on, so you're not missing focus? Do you want just single autofocusing, to where I'm not moving and you can just half press the shutter, use your back button focus, and get that as well? Or do you want manual focusing? If you want to do some video, if you want to get really specific, you could dial that in as well. There are 3D matrix motoring, all that kind of stuff. But just really know continuous autofocusing, single autofocus, and manual focus. Learn the others a little bit later, but understand those three and what the power of those are, and it could really work out for you. Another setting you kind of have to menu dive a little bit, but once you find it, you're going to be fine, and that is formatting. Why is formatting important? Because formatting your memory cards after putting them in the computer or whatever device you're using, it's really essential, because you could get kind of artifacts and junk, because especially if you switch between your SD cards or your CF cards between cameras, you can get corruption and everything like that. Formatting the cards makes it specifically written for what you're using at the time, and it works. It's just a more reliable card, and it frees up space accurately as well. So knowing how to format a card and doing it every time you're using it, as long as you have your images saved, I think is a key thing to know. I don't want to go too crazy explaining white balance, but I think white balance is obviously important as well, especially if you're not shooting raw. Yeah, you can change it in post, and it's a little janky with JPEG, but understanding your white balance and Kelvin temperatures and warm and cool, I think would really help in regards to what mood you're trying to get, or what accurate lighting or the white point that you want to use. I think that would be key, and I think that it's just something that you should know, and another thing to add to your repertoire, especially then once you go raw, you can have more of an understanding, and when you're editing, dialing it in. And I recently just did a video on this, and I think one of the things you should know is how the hell to mount and dismount a lens from your camera. I've seen too many YouTube videos. I've seen YouTube videos taken down, blogs of people not knowing this, not reading their manuals. I think knowing how the hell to mount and take off a lens is probably one of the biggest things. If not, maybe it should go first on this list. I made a video on this, actually, so if you're curious about this, I'll link that down below as well. Just be careful, please. So I hope you like this video. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. Please give me a quick thumbs up if you like this. And write down below, add more things that you think you should know, especially mainly for beginners and amateurs and maybe hobbyists that are really kind of coming into it, that you should know by heart, camera setting wise. They'd be great to share some more knowledge. Let's go into this. Be smart, people.